What's up, guys? I just wanted to let you guys know we're hosting a webinar in mid-August. There'll be a link in the description below with different times. There's going to be 2 live webinars. It's going to be on the ways that we find Chinese manufacturers, so the way our company, Source Find Asia, researches and vets Chinese manufacturers, and then there'll be a little bit of a bonus in terms of how we sort of elevate our relationships with them. Speaking of elevate, the name of the method that we use is called the SAFE method. So if you guys have checked out our ebook, you should be a little bit familiar with this. So S stands for search, A stands for assess, F stands for finalize, and E stands for elevate. So I hope to see you guys on that live webinar. Again, link is in the description. Sign up today. There's only going to be a limited amount of seats. I believe we're only taking about 50 people on the first webinar. If there's a huge demand, then we might increase that, but sign up today so you don't miss your spot. What's up, YouTube, and what's up, podcast family? It's Rico here, CEO of Source Find Asia, host of the Made in China podcast, and the host of the Source Find Asia YouTube channel. I'm sitting here with Mark Ramos. You might have heard the podcast episode that we did, I feel like it was about 10-15 episodes ago, about Mark's story coming to China, getting into the online marketing game. He's been in the online marketing game for about 15 years. In today's video/podcast, we're on location, hanging out at Gale's on Xinguolu, the famous Gale's on Xinguolu. There's a bunch of background construction going on, typical China. But yeah, this episode we're going to be focusing on the advantages of coming to China from a marketing and sourcing perspective.
Woo! We go 100 miles a minute, baby. Here we go. Come on. Here we go. Come on. That's why they crown me, back out to get blacked out, amnesia. That's why they crown me, back out to get blacked out, amnesia. Woo! We go 100 miles a minute, baby. Here we go, come on. Here we go, come on. That's why they crown me, That's why they crown me. A party hard, day my mind.
Starting off from a sourcing standpoint, I mean, I've talked about this a bunch of times. It's always going to be beneficial for somebody to come to China. For me, I think it's building a relationship with the suppliers. I look at it more from the manufacturing side of things, right? So I'm thinking about building relationships with suppliers. I'm thinking about negotiation, thinking about being able to physically touch the products that you're trying to source. Also seeing what the factory is capable of making. From your perspective, what do you think are the advantages of coming to China from a sourcing side?
What you described is exactly the advantages of having, like, some feet on the ground, as we call it, right? Because you want to be able to see all those things physically. And that's the advantage of people when they come to the Canton Fair. We always tell them, like, no matter what you do online, I mean, with the advent of Alibaba and all the online resources that people can do from away from home, they feel like that's just enough. And while you could begin your business that way, I said, once you get to the level where you're making some money, then you definitely need to, come out here, or at least have somebody come out and be out here to explore those options that you described. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge advantage, and people they discount that, thinking to themselves, no, I don't need that, but truly that's going to make the difference, especially when you're dealing with Amazon. The quality is the primary driver now. So if you have, like, what you think is good, and even from the samples, that's not enough. A sample is only what they provide you when they want to sell you, but by the time you actually have the full production, it could be a different beast. So,
yeah.
You need something or someone out here like yourself, to examine those pieces and all the intricacies of what a e-commerce or, physical product business entails. Right?
What about understanding the Chinese business mindset?
It used to be a bigger deal, and yes, it's important, but it's not like before, where, like, all the nuances of, like, bowing and accepting cards in certain ways, if that's what you're alluding to. But as far as, like, the business, they're more used to foreigners coming out now, so they're just like, most of them, in the end, they all just want to get down to business, right? And
yeah.
As long as you pay and you provide and you do your thing, they're going to do the best that they can for you, at least the good factory as well.
Well, especially, like, I think in southern China, it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, that's
just because they've dealt with so many foreigners, and
sure.
they're now used to. I remember, like, a big thing, still kind of a big thing, but I remember a really big thing was people complaining about having to drink alcohol a lot on the meetings. But like now, because they've dealt with people who have different religions and all this stuff, I find like in southern China, the factories don't really pressure you as much.
Yeah, and that's more my experience as well,
yeah.
because we're based here in Guangzhou, so we did mainly, like, I personally don't go all the way up to the north as much anymore because I already have my contacts up there.
Yep.
But I know what you mean, like, they've adjusted, but sure, it's still, you're talking about a long time of tradition, so you can just politely decline the alcohol part, but a lot of guys actually enjoy that part, so it's kind of,
well, if you don't do it that frequently, then it's one of those things.
Sure.
For somebody like me, it's like, oh, I can't do that.
When you visit a factory daily, I think that might add up pretty quickly.
How many people selling on Amazon and e-commerce platforms do you think have no idea where their factory is located, or have never met their factory and that kind of stuff, and are successful still?
I couldn't give you a precise
but
from my experience and the people I
no.
run into, I would say it's a large amount, more than 50% for sure, maybe closer to 80 or even more. But I don't want to say that because I don't really know. But because I primarily deal with sellers that actually know what they're doing, so they come out here and I interact with them. So of course they know, and but it's a very small segment of the population of sellers that are doing that, right? I mean, a lot of them are just successful business people, so they don't necessarily have the time to come out here to deal with that. So.
Well, what I start to notice is, like, especially with my clients and stuff, like the clients that I have that have been really successful on Amazon started, let's say 3-4 years ago, have over 5 different products that are all selling really well, and then almost all of them have been to China at some stage during this past 3-4 years. And I think with them coming here, they had this realization that they could do more with their products themselves. And then they want to launch like multiple products at the same time. And then they see the advantage of working with somebody who's on the ground, or they see the advantage of maybe coming here themselves for 6 months or whatever time that is. Like, for example, one of my buddies, Nick Nerov, who I've been on his channel, and he's been on my channel a bunch of times. Through the process of him coming to China for 6 months, he'd been working with the same factory for about 2 to 3 years. His sales had grown, 600% or whatever in that time period, and yet either the pricing of his product was still the same, or even more expensive. And it was the moment when I was like, dude, like, you have to come out. Was he was about to place an order that was about 2 times the size of his previous order, and they were like, well, we're gonna have to raise the per unit cost by like 20% or something. And I was like, that just seems weird.
Raise.
So he came down, and then we went to his factory. It was in the middle of nowhere in northern China. And what we realized from going to the factory was that the reason why they kept on increasing his prices or keeping them the same was because they'd stopped making that product for other clients. He was the only client that they were making that product for. And that product has like a very high defect rate. So they'd start focusing on other simpler products that weren't even using his materials. So essentially, every time he was buying the product, they had to place a raw material order, and he was basically paying the cost of that.
Sure.
But we would have never known that from like the communication and all that stuff. So the lesson we took from that is I told him, like, well, this factory is not focused on making this product anymore. You need to find a factory that is focused on making this product. And we spent 2 to 3 months researching suppliers, visiting them in different parts of China, and he ended up finding a supplier in Xinjiang province who had some government subsidies and whatever, and was really focused on that product, expanding his factory, and then he was able to drop his per unit cost by about 40%.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's like one of those advantages of physically being here. I don't see any scenario being remotely working with China and being able to figure that out,
Yeah, I mean, what you said is logical,
Yep.
and from our perspective, because we've seen it all the time, it's like, yeah, of course, because that's what's going on. And the hard part is, especially if you don't speak the language or have someone on the team that speaks it, it's like they can't communicate. Sometimes they're shady, these factories or not. They didn't know how to explain, like, hey, look, we're not, or they're ashamed to say that. That's another thing too. They don't want to tell you, like, hey, you're not our primary focus, but we still want to produce this for you. They're not just going to say, hey, we don't want your business.
Yeah.
But that's up to you as the buyer to say, hey, look, I think I need to go to somebody else. And that's your concern as a business owner to make that decision. But I guess if you don't even know that's an option, you're stuck. And especially if you've been dealing with the same company for more than one year or longer, then you start getting that emotional attachment.
Yeah.
And we never want to get attached to any factory. We always want to have at least 2 or 3 backups, because if anything goes wrong, it's kind of like your whole business sometimes relies on that product. And if one mistake happens and the factory can't do it, what are you going to do? You're going to just stop producing? No, you need to have somebody else to at least make sure that you have that product going along.
So you have, for what's the past 3-4 years?
Yeah, I guess as soon as I would say the Amazon thing got very popular, we started having a lot of people coming out to run kind of seminar groups to bring them to the Canton Fair, as well have some educational component to it. So I guess that would be 4, even 5 years ago when it first started. So yeah, I mean, it stems from the fact that I knew a lot of these marketers from America. So when they knew that I was based out here, they kind of said, "Hey, Mark, do you know any places that we can, throw our event? Can you help us kind of navigate the waters with setting them up?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then that part of the business kind of grew from there.
You talking to these people, you've been doing it for 3-4 years. I'm sure some of the people that went to the first event are in a very different situation from when they were coming for the first time 4 years later.
Yeah, I mean,
what is sort of the experiences that people have had?
Of course, over time, the more people got educated, so the different kind of people who come out have a different level of experience with the business. But of course, in the beginning, it was tons of beginners, so they were trying to condense their education into one thing, thinking it was the magic cure. Which, of course, even if you did come out to China, it's good, and see the Canton Fair is great. But learning in that compressed time period is not enough, because they're dealing with jet lag, all kinds of adjustments to the culture and the environment that they're in. So what they thought maybe might have been a magic pill wasn't. So of course there's going to be people in those days a little bit upset from what they thought they were going to get, versus now everything is much more efficient because everybody knows what to expect and the teachers know what to teach, and the things that we do are more aligned with everybody's experience, I think. So it's much better
but
for everybody.
That trip is more focused around taking people to the fair and helping them to source from the fair kind of thing.
Yeah, so the majority of the guys who do trips are just to have a comfortable environment for them to be with their peers and go to the Canton Fair together, versus just randomly going there on their own. Yes, you can do this on your own like everybody else does, but they don't realize we had many people who come on their own, and then they said, "Let me try with a group," and they said it was night and day. They should have probably went with the group the first time, because they just wasted what they did when they tried to do it on their own.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have somebody who guides you, kind of point you out what the best ways to, because the Canton Fair is large, right? It's very huge, and people, no matter how much you describe it, until you attended it, you won't understand the scope of the facility. So most people think, I'll just walk it and I'll do what I want. And then before you know it, they're overwhelmed, tired, doing 20,000, 30,000 steps per day, starts adding up, and they just feel like they just didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
They trick themselves to think they did, but in
not
the end,
asking
they're
the right questions.
Yeah, so they miss out on all the, I think they're so focused on, I just got to get through this, versus actually being effective, focusing on the right areas in the fair, and then attacking it with some kind of plan. And that's the difference, and again, you can read up and probably see a YouTube video where someone explaining that, but again, it's not the same when you're doing it with a group of people and having somebody who knows exactly what they're doing behind that process.
Do you think for somebody, let's say, who's a more advanced seller, they've been selling for 4 or 5 years, they've been to China, maybe they've never been to the fair, but they've been to China a few times, do you think there's still an advantage of them coming to the Canton Fair, if you've been selling for 3+ years?
If they're strictly just doing the Canton Fair, I would maybe say no, just because the Canton Fair, to be honest, is actually more full of inflated sellers, as we would call them, because they have to burden the cost of how much to have a booth there and everything. So they factor that into their pricing as well. So a lot of people may or may not know that even their employees that they are talking to you in English are not necessarily an employee of the company. They might have hired them to speak, just so that they can interact with you. But so all those costs are now factored into what you're getting as a price. So
yeah, there's a reason why 60-70% of the salespeople at the booths are usually attractive young girls who speak very good English. Yeah, it's that is not the situation where you actually go to the factory.
We know. We wish oh wow, I'm gonna go meet her again later when you go to the factory and you're like, wait a minute, where is so and so? And Oh,
Like, oh no, she was just
there at the fair. Yeah, so
the
I
temporary
mean,
situation.
just for all you guys there, that's what you're thinking in the back of your mind. That's what's going on. What your question was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure like an experienced seller wouldn't see the value. The only value for that person is maybe if they're like thinking of new ideas and things like that. Then the Canton Fair is very good because the guys are trying to show the best of the best when they're there. So they will display some new items that you might not have seen. With the internet now, maybe it's not as big an advantage, but definitely like a few years back, that was one of the biggest advantages, seeing what the factory might have been like, this is my hot product. And if you attend the fair, you would, oh, okay, that's something cool. You know, like I'm going to look into that, and it might not necessarily be that factory, but at least you could talk to your factory or whatever if you have that experience. But, you know, now it's not as useful for an experienced seller.
What's up, guys? I just wanted to let you guys know we're hosting a webinar in mid-August. There'll be a link in the description below with different times. There's going to be 2 live webinars. It's going to be on the ways that we find Chinese manufacturers, so the way our company, Source by Asia, researches and vets Chinese manufacturers, and then there'll be a little bit of a bonus in terms of how we sort of elevate our relationships with them. Speaking of elevate, the name of the method that we use is called the SAFE method. So if you guys have checked out our ebook, you should be a little bit familiar with this. So S stands for search, A stands for assess, F stands for finalize, and E stands for elevate. So I hope to see you guys on that live webinar. Again, link is in the description. Sign up today. There's only going to be a limited amount of seats. I believe we're only taking about 50 people on the first webinar. If there's a huge demand, then we might increase that, but sign up today so you don't miss your spot. I think with a trip like that, I think, like you said, the advantage is more for somebody who's a beginner. But then for people that have been selling for a while, I think there's other events that they could benefit from. Like Chris Davies has the Amazon FBA for You meetup.
Yeah, like FBA for You meetup is more of a good networking spot. You're not going to learn anything there, but you're going to meet tons of sellers who are doing high numbers all the time. So
you pick their brains. There's going to be there's going to be service providers like sourcing companies, so all that stuff.
When you're here, you definitely need to attend that if you're any kind of e-commerce seller or Amazon seller.
But a big one that both you and I have been a part of is the Cross-Border Summit, right? Like, and actually at this stage, there should be a video that out with my sort of summary of my experiences at the Cross-Border Summit over 3 years. So we're hosting another one, or you and Mike are hosting another one this year in Guangzhou.
If you don't know, Mike Michelini is the host of the Global from Asia podcast. He runs an event called the Cross-Border Summit, and that he's done it about 3 years already. And he moved to Thailand, so he asked me to be involved now. So we're bringing it back to Guangzhou. So in October of 2019, we're having a big Cross-Border Summit event. We got 10 or so speakers lined up, and Danny McMillan, Will Tejerlin, Michael Hartman. These are the premier speakers who are going to be there, and you're going to learn a lot from just anything that they're going to talk about. So it's going to be intense because we're going to have 2 days of events. We have a mastermind session as well, and a lot of cool things.
Yeah, I mean, what I think the thing is that when people think about the Cross-Border Summit, or we're talking about events in China around that time of the year, they're thinking more of the manufacturing side of things. But I think what I noticed as well in the previous events, you had different spaces. There's a space for manufacturing. There's a space for people that wanted to learn more about e-commerce and the marketing side of things. So that's why it's a good event. It's a good event for people to go to, even if they've been selling for a while. They can still learn about marketing.
Yeah. Anybody who says they know everything is pretty ignorant. I mean, you should always be trying to learn what's new out there and learning any little, because the more advanced you get, the more that every single little tweak that you can do in your business is going to be an advantage, right? And we're going to have somebody who speaks about managing teams for the Amazon business and how they outsource the pieces that are important. And I think a lot of people can benefit for something like that as well. I mean, just stuff like that, a lot of people don't get into. They're going to be discussing that kind of thing. And I think that's the importance of, you can go to these kind of things in America. There's tons of marketing events that I know of, and I know a lot of people are at least attending those, I hope. But if not, I mean, the Cross-Border Summit is unique. It's just because there's some people that are coming to speak that you've never seen before, who have multi-million-dollar businesses that you can learn from and look into.
Some of these people are just based in Southeast Asia, and
exactly. So for them, it's easier for them to be over here. So you're going to see a lot of speakers that you've never heard of, but they're doing huge numbers. Like we have an Amazon seller who's going to be on the panel who's doing like $2 or $3 million of revenue in Amazon every month, right? So it's like just one thing that he says can transform your business if you're not doing, unless you're doing like 10 times what he's doing, then maybe you want one. But the majority of people I meet are not hitting anywhere near those kind of numbers. So I know you can learn from something from the guy, for sure.
So would you say that, in terms of the e-commerce side, the business side of things, there are similar events in the States and in Europe and stuff, but the advantage here, like you said, is that there's going to be people that you probably would never meet.
Yes, that's one. And another thing is like we're holding it right at the same time as the Canton Fair.
Yeah.
So it's like in between the phases, so you have the time to actually attend the Canton Fair as well as attend the event. So for a lot of people, that's going to be, they might as well, spend that time in a productive way, whereas it's just like, maybe looking at the catalogs they got from phase one, they can actually attend an event where they can learn and network with other successful sellers and learn, just improve their business in some way.
Which, I mean, that goes back to a video that I made about, it's like things to do outside of the Canton Fair.
Yeah.
Like the reality is sometimes, especially if you know kind of what you're looking for, you might only need to be at the fair for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And then the
actually we're trained the right way, like we said. 2 days is more than enough to do what you want, and the 3 days left you can wander. But if there's other things you can do, or met and schedule a time to speak one of these speakers, maybe on the side, that's
for a huge professional like me. All I need is half a day. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm surprised you even go.
I hardly ever go unless people are paying me to go, man. Like seriously, I think the last time I went, I was paid to go. We took. Actually, which kind of leads me into the next part. Michelini and I took a group from the Cross-Border Summit to the fair.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a test for our Accelerate program,
yes,
which we are doing again this year.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, we're also going to do like a combination of the Cross-Border Summit with the Canton Fair tour for those who have no experience with this. So I recommend, that people try to do or attend one of these events or all of the events. But the Accelerate is the program that we're talking about, where you go in depth about explaining how to actually source properly on their own, or you're also using and you're going to walk them day by day on steps on how to do that. Right? So
yeah, and I think the biggest difference with the Accelerate program versus one of these, like the trips that we were talking about at the top of the show, is we're going to be actually, it's not for necessarily beginners in the sense that if you don't know what your product is, it's not for you. It's more like what you're looking for, or you're trying to improve your supplier relationship or something like that. And then we're gonna do some pre-sourcing, and then we bring you down to China, and then for 5, 6, 7 days straight, we're finishing the qualifying process with suppliers. You're working with my team, with me one-on-one, with a small group of experts as well. And then by the end of the trip, you should have visited your factory. You should be ready to place an order or have placed an order. So like what that means as well is like defining quality control points, getting the contracts in place, understanding who your factory is, not just having one factory, but having 2 or 3 other options in case something goes wrong with your first factory. So I feel like that 6 to 7 days is a lot more than what people usually get when they just go to the fair and walk around and do a couple of masterminds. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's more like if you're in discovery phase and you're kind of trying to figure it out. But this is more like, hey, I know the product that I want, or I've been selling and I'm trying to get a better supplier. And I also want to learn the professional way to start an order.
Sure.
And so that's kind of what we're looking at doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're pointing out is like the hugest advantage of coming to China as well as running a program like this. Because as mentioned, I've done like hundreds of events that we've run out here, but the majority of the educators are just, giving you tips, but you could have done that back wherever they were. It's not necessarily like catered to them to be why you are here in China. So the accelerator program is more like why you are coming out here. You want to actually understand the nuances of what it is to source, and then also like you explaining step by step and actually sourcing a product. It's a much more in-depth kind of experience than just coming to learn like something and kind of like digesting it and saying, okay, how do I apply this? You're actually going to make them apply what you're learning during the time.
In real time, giving real time feedback, looking at responses from factories, and being able to understand why I like this response versus I don't like this response. Assessing samples in person, things like
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Being able to physically see the factory that you might work with. I think those are huge advantages.
Yeah. And one of the weaknesses I see for most of these programs are, while they do talk about marketing and strategy to do it, they don't actually get to the core of what I think that most e-commerce and anybody dealing with the physical product business should be doing, which is like building some kind of community or email list. Even though all the hot stuff now is chat bots and this, and there's always going to be a new thing, but email is one of the most, like, still the most responsive in the end to somebody who has a customer or a brand. Like, and that's the main thing now. Everyone needs, as more competitive it becomes, you have to build a brand these days. If you don't build some kind of brand and community, you're just taking advantage of the tool, what the tools are showing you, but that's not enough, because there's another person right behind you using those same tools, trying to sell the same product and proving exactly what you did. And if you don't have any kind of relationship with your customers, you're pretty much dead in the water.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we want to do this time in the accelerator is actually have like a day where we focus on like building and showing you exactly how to use social media and everything like that to build some kind of community and customer list. Show you the details on how to do that. And by the time you're done with that day, you're going to probably maybe even have, within the next few days, you'll have some people on that list and you build a relationship with them. We're going to show you exactly how to do that. And that's going to be the most powerful thing that anybody can do. And no one's going to, they'll teach you out there, but that's for like, they won't even tell you all the secrets. And we're going to reveal a lot to you. Through all the business that I run, this is what we attribute to a lot of the success to, because we can literally launch any product we want because we have, a large list that we can promote to. So it's like, I don't need a tool to tell me. I just say, hey, what do you guys think about this? I like it. Sold.
Yeah.
I don't even need to worry about, I pre-sell it and then I get it done. So wouldn't you like to do that? I think you would, and most people would. So this is something that we're going to discuss and have a full day going over that. So this is one of the things that we're going to sweeten the pot with if anybody who does attend the accelerator this year. And we're going to actually throw in this huge thing where you get into the accelerator, we get that training. We'll also throw in the cross-border summit ticket to that and the Canton Fair tour ticket. So you're getting the biggest package that you'll ever will. And we're only doing it now because we want to give the most, bang for your buck if you come out to China. And we want to really make this a great experience for anybody.
And we're still keeping it a very small group of people, so everybody can have that one-on-one attention, whereas I think some of the bigger groups are like 30, 40 people. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, because those guys need the numbers to get it right. We're not here to we just want you guys to have results, because as you do better, we all do better too. So that's the biggest difference.
So we're doing the accelerator program 7 days, and then cross-border summit is 1 to 2 days.
Yeah, 2
and then the Canton Fair visit would be a day.
Yes.
Yep. And then I think some of the speakers from the cross-border summit might come to the Canton Fair for the day.
During the tour, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
during the
You're
tour,
going to get some of those guys who will come, and we have like a few after parties planned, and just for that, we're also going to be all going to Chris Davies' FBA for You event, as long as you're still here. So you got to really plan it out, how long someone's going to be around. But we made sure all the dates don't coincide with any of the other guys who we are doing groups with. And we're associated with all the biggest groups out here anyway, so we know who not to interfere with. And they're working with us as well. Some of those guys are speaking at the event. They might have their own group, but they're also speaking at our event. So it's the most condensed way to meet everybody and the most important people in the industry at the same time. That's my humble opinion.
So you come there, you source your products, you learn how to sell your product, and then you also you do real-time practice at the fair and a little bit more networking.
Yeah. Nothing is I've ever seen. All this time we're doing this kind of stuff. Yep. This is the most comprehensive one, because you're doing this intense thing combined with having a great educational experience at the cross-border summit and then having a tour day. I mean, how much more do you need? I think it's pretty awesome. Then you're going to build a strong relationship with a lot of good awesome sellers.
So just to clarify, for the accelerator program, as we did last year, the structure is 7 days. We're working out of an office with my sourcing assistant team to work with me one-on-one. Mark is going to be around. We're going to have some other experts in the shipping industry, QC industry. Accommodations included, breakfast and lunch, transportation to and from your hotel to the office, And then we're going to have a couple other cool events, like visiting your actual suppliers. We might even do a spa trip. We'll have a couple surprises in there, and a little bit of play as well. A couple dinners.
Yeah, for
nice
sure.
dinners. And,
Look at Rico. He's going to be up all night. Making sure that you're going to get the best experience you possibly could have. So
taking my 4.5 years of experience. At that stage, it would be 5 years. My 5 years of experience in China, and partying in the first year.
Yeah.
And then China Mike's experiences as well. China Mike's been all over the place. So it's definitely guaranteed to be a good time.
Yeah.
And an educational time as well.
Sure. I highly recommend it. So sign up before it's too late.
All right, so guys, if you're interested in that, we'll have a link in the description below for the accelerator program. As Mark mentioned, it's not just the accelerator program. You sign up for the program, you also get a free ticket to the Cross-Border Summit. And then on top of that, you also
the highest package. So it's not
the
like
highest package,
the highest package of the Cross-Border Summit. So
and then on top of that, we also take you to the Canton Fair for a day with a bunch of experts. So you should sign up as soon as possible. We're going to be taking a very small group for the accelerator because, like I said, we want to have it very intimate and we want to educate everybody and have that one-on-one attention as much as possible. So I'll see you guys next week. And if you like this kind of content, like, comment, subscribe. Cheers.
That's why they crown me back out to get blacked out amnesia. That's why they crown me back out to get blacked out amnesia. That's why they crown me